Everything you own, the coffee you drink, the phone in your hand, and the roof over your head belongs to a ghost company you've never met. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a reality hidden in plain sight. To understand how one company silently took control of the world, we have to go back to the 1980s, to a Wall Street trading floor filled with ambition and brutal competition. This is where we meet our protagonist, a young, brilliant bond trader named Larry Fink. Fink wasn't just another suit. He was a pioneer, a visionary who practically invented the mortgage-backed security market. At First Boston, one of the most prestigious investment banks in the world, he was a superstar. He was generating millions, then tens of millions, in profits. His team was a juggernaut, a profit machine that made him the heir apparent to the CEO's throne. He was on top of the world, untouchable. But Wall Street has a way of humbling even its gods. In 1986, the market turned. Interest rates shifted unexpectedly, and Fink's models, once seen as infallible, suddenly failed. In a single quarter, his department, which was once the bank's golden goose, lost a staggering $100 million. It was a catastrophic, career-ending failure. Fink went from being the wonder boy of Wall Street to a pariah. The humiliation was total. His colleagues shunned him. The promotion he was promised vanished. He was publicly shamed, a lesson in how quickly fortunes can turn. But this failure didn't break him, it forged him. That $100 million loss became the seed of an obsession. Fink realized the problem wasn't his ambition. It was the lack of control. The financial world was flying blind, making colossal bets based on gut feelings and incomplete data. What if, he wondered, you could see the future? What if you could anticipate every risk, model every possible outcome, and eliminate uncertainty altogether? This obsession, born from his greatest defeat, would lead him to build something far more powerful than any bank. In 1988, with a small team of partners and a burning desire for redemption, Fink started a new firm in a single room. He called it Blackstone Financial Management, a name that would later be changed to BlackRock. Their mission was simple but audacious: to build a system that could understand and manage financial risk better than anyone else on the planet. They weren't just trading bonds anymore. They were building a technological fortress. While other firms were chasing quick profits, Fink's team was quietly writing code. They were building a centralized technological platform, a risk management system that could analyze vast amounts of data and provide a clear picture of any investment portfolio. They named it Aladdin, which stands for Asset, Liability, and Debt and Derivative Investment Network. It was designed to be the ultimate financial oracle, a system that would prevent a disaster like the one he suffered at First Boston from ever happening again. At first, no one paid much attention. BlackRock was just another small asset manager in a sea of giants, but their results spoke for themselves. While other firms stumbled through market downturns, BlackRock's clients thrived. The secret was Aladdin. It could see risks others couldn't, identifying hidden dangers in complex portfolios. Word began to spread. Other financial institutions, desperate for an edge, started asking if they could use BlackRock's system. This was Fink's masterstroke. He realized that the real power wasn't just in managing his own money. It was in managing everyone else's. He started licensing Aladdin to competitors, to banks, to insurance companies, even to the U.S. government. By letting others use his system, he gained unprecedented insight into the entire financial ecosystem. He could see how money was moving across the globe, who was buying what, and where the next crisis might erupt. BlackRock grew at an explosive rate. Through a series of strategic acquisitions, it absorbed competitors and expanded its reach. The pivotal moment came during the 2008 financial crisis. As the global economy teetered on the brink of collapse, the U.S. government was desperate. They needed someone to analyze the toxic mortgage assets that were poisoning the entire system. They didn't turn to Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan. They turned to Larry Fink and BlackRock. Overnight, BlackRock became the unofficial manager of the Wall Street bailout. They were given the keys to the kingdom, tasked with cleaning up the mess created by the very banks they once competed with. Using Aladdin, they analyzed trillions of dollars in toxic assets, advising the Federal Reserve and the Treasury on how to navigate the crisis. Fink, the man once shamed for losing $100 million, was now the most powerful man in finance, the consigliere to governments and central banks around the world. After the crisis, BlackRock's dominance was absolute. It had become the world's largest asset manager, a silent giant controlling trillions of dollars. Today, that number is nearly $10 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire gross domestic product of every country on Earth, except for the United States and China. $10 trillion. An amount of money so vast it's almost impossible to comprehend. This isn't just money sitting in a vault, it's ownership. BlackRock is the largest shareholder in thousands of companies. It owns a significant stake in Apple, in Microsoft, in Amazon. It's a top investor in Pfizer, the company that makes your medicine. It has huge holdings in Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, influencing what you eat and drink. It owns shares in ExxonMobil and other energy giants, shaping climate policy. From the news you watch to the car you drive, BlackRock has a piece of it. You might go your whole life without ever hearing the name BlackRock, but their decisions affect you every single day. They are the biggest landlord in America, a major force in the housing market. Their investment strategies can determine which companies get funding and which ones fail, which industries grow, and which ones shrink. They don't run these companies directly. They don't need to. As the largest shareholder, their influence is exerted quietly in boardrooms and through voting power. They are the ghost in the machine of global capitalism. And at the heart of this empire is Aladdin. It's no longer just a risk management tool. It has evolved into something far more powerful. It's been called the central nervous system of the financial world. Rival banks, pension funds, and even Apple and Google rely on Aladdin to manage their money. This gives BlackRock a god's-eye view of the global economy. They see the trades their rivals are making. They see where the big institutional money is flowing before anyone else does. This information is power, and BlackRock has more of it than any government or organization in history. Think about it. One private company, through one proprietary AI system, has its finger on the pulse of the global economy. The decisions made by Aladdin's algorithms, the subtle adjustments to trillions of dollars in investments, can cause ripples that turn into tidal waves. A decision made by a line of code in a server farm can determine whether a factory in Ohio stays open or a new mine is built in Africa. It can influence the price of your groceries and the interest rate on your mortgage. Larry Fink built his empire on the idea of eliminating risk. He wanted to create a system that could see everything, control everything, and prevent another failure like the one that nearly destroyed him. He succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. He built an empire of shadow and data, a kingdom ruled by an algorithm. But as his power grew, so did the nature of his ambition. He had conquered the world of finance. He had made money a solved problem. But money, it turned out, was just the beginning. The real purpose of Aladdin, the true endgame for this $10 trillion empire, is something far more terrifying than anyone realizes. And the world is completely unprepared for what comes next. They don't just invest in companies. They invest in governments. This is the revolving door, a secret passage connecting BlackRock's corporate offices directly to the halls of power in Washington, D.C. BlackRock executives don't just advise the White House. They become the White House. They leave their seven-figure salaries, take up senior positions in the Treasury Department, write the very laws and regulations that will govern the financial world. And then, a few years later, they revolve right back out, returning to the private sector with inside knowledge that is priceless. They didn't just buy a company, they bought the laws that govern your life. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a career path. Look at the rosters. The names change, but the company name stays the same. The same minds that managed BlackRock's trillions are the ones managing the U.S. economy, shaping policies that directly impact your savings, your mortgage, and your job security. And the greatest trick they ever pulled was convincing you this was normal. The fact that this information is hidden in plain sight is BlackRock's greatest achievement. This pipeline of power wasn't built overnight. It was forged in the fires of a crisis. 2008. The world economy is in freefall. Lehman Brothers collapses. The global financial system is on the brink of obliteration. Panic grips Wall Street, and that panic spreads to Washington. In their darkest hour, who did the United States government call? Not another bank, not a team of economists. They called one man, Larry Fink. They begged BlackRock to save them. They handed over the keys to the kingdom. They gave BlackRock no-bid contracts to manage the toxic assets from Bear Stearns and AIG, the very assets that were poisoning the entire system. In that moment, BlackRock went from being a major player to being the system itself. They were given unprecedented access to the Federal Reserve's balance sheets, the government's most sensitive financial data. Every secret, every vulnerability, every asset of the American economy was laid bare before them. They became the sole contractor for the government's rescue mission, deciding which assets to save and which to let burn. While the world saw a bailout, BlackRock saw the greatest business opportunity in human history. They were paid billions to clean up a mess they profited from, all while gaining intimate knowledge of the entire financial world's inner workings. They didn't just save the economy. They bought its blueprint. With this power, their expansion became unstoppable. Today, they are not just investors, they are owners. Think about the brand of cereal you ate this morning. The company that made it? BlackRock is likely its largest shareholder. The prescription medicine in your cabinet? The company that patented it? BlackRock is probably their largest shareholder too. The smartphone you're holding, the software running on it, the car you drive, the gas that fuels it, the media you consume from Apple and Microsoft to Pfizer and ExxonMobil. Look up the top institutional holders. You will find one name again and again, BlackRock. They are the silent partner in nearly every major corporation on Earth. This isn't ownership in the traditional sense. It's something far more profound. When one entity is the top shareholder in competing companies, say, both Coke and Pepsi, what does that mean for competition? It means they have the power to influence entire industries, not for the benefit of you, the consumer, but for the benefit of their portfolio. Prices for your food, your medicine, your technology are all indirectly influenced by the decisions made in a single Manhattan skyscraper. Your choices in the marketplace are becoming an illusion, curated by an invisible hand that owns a piece of everything. But their control doesn't stop at your wallet. It extends to your very reality. This is where their power becomes almost Orwellian. It's called ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance Investing. On the surface, it sounds wonderful. Who wouldn't want to invest in companies that are good for the planet and society? But BlackRock wields EC like a weapon. With trillions of dollars in leverage, Larry Fink writes an annual letter to CEOs. It's not a suggestion. It's a directive. In these letters, he tells the most powerful companies in the world how they must operate. He sets the agenda. Adopt our climate goals, or we will vote against your board. Implement our diversity metrics, or we will divest. They are using their financial might to force social and political change, completely bypassing the democratic process. They are engineering the world you live in without you ever casting a single vote. The policies shaping your workplace, the values promoted by the brands you buy, the very social fabric of your country, all are being steered by the financial calculus of an asset manager. They are creating a new form of governance, a corporate-led world order where the ultimate authority isn't a president or a prime minister, but a CEO with $10 trillion at his command. You are living in a society shaped by their agenda, and you were never even asked. And this brings us back to their ultimate weapon, the engine driving this entire global machine. How do they manage this web of corporate control and political influence so flawlessly? How do they seem to know what will happen next? The answer lies with Aladdin, their AI. We've talked about its financial power, its ability to see the future of the markets. But its true power is far more terrifying. Aladdin doesn't just analyze stock prices and bond yields. It analyzes everything. It scrapes news articles, social media, political speeches, and regulatory filings from every country on Earth. It processes this information in real time, learning and identifying patterns humans could never see. Aladdin can predict political shifts before they happen. It can model the probable outcome of an election, the likelihood of a bill passing in Congress, or the public reaction to a corporate scandal. When BlackRock executives move into government, they bring with them the insights of a machine that has already gamed out every possible future. Their policy decisions are not just based on ideology or public good. They are informed by an AI that tells them the most profitable and powerful path forward. It's an unbreakable feedback loop. Political power gives Aladdin more data. More data makes Aladdin's predictions more accurate. And more accurate predictions give BlackRock more political power. They are no longer just reacting to the world. They are creating it, guided by a digital god of their own making. This isn't just about money anymore. This is about the consolidation of all power, financial, political, and informational, into a single, unaccountable entity. And its brain is a machine. But what we've uncovered is only the beginning of what Aladdin can do. It's been learning. It's been evolving. The true purpose for which it was built is not to predict the future, but to write it. The final stage of its evolution is nearly complete, and its ultimate directive goes far beyond anything we've discussed. It's a goal so ambitious, it will redefine the very meaning of control itself. Its name is Aladdin, but it's not software. It's a digital nervous system, a financial deity built from silicon and code, wrapped around the global economy. This machine doesn't just manage money. It monitors a staggering $21 trillion in assets. That's more than the annual economic output of the entire United States, all flowing through a single centralized network. Every stock, every bond, every derivative, every piece of debt held by the world's most powerful institutions is cataloged, analyzed, and controlled within its digital domain. When a pension fund in Tokyo makes a move, or a sovereign wealth fund in Dubai shifts its strategy, Aladdin sees it. It's not just observing the market. For all intents and purposes, it is the market. It's the closest thing our species has ever built to an all-seeing economic god, silently watching from its server farms in the American heartland. How does it see the future? Every single day, Aladdin runs thousands of what are called Monte Carlo simulations. Think of it like a time machine for money. It creates millions of possible futures, simulating everything from a sudden market crash to the outcome of a presidential election. It models natural disasters, political coups, even subtle shifts in public opinion. It stress tests its $21 trillion portfolio against every conceivable catastrophe. Before a crisis even appears on the horizon, before the first news headline is written, Aladdin has already played out the scenario thousands of times, calculating the risks and advising its human masters on how to profit from the chaos. It's not just predicting the future. It's running simulations to find the most profitable path through it. The system doesn't just react to reality. It warps probability in its favor, steering capital away from risk and towards guaranteed returns before the rest of us even know there's a storm coming. But this system isn't just looking at Wall Street. It's looking at you. Every time you swipe your credit card, every time you search for a product online, every time you take out a loan, you are feeding this machine. Your data, your desires, your financial habits, they are all just variables in its grand equation. That piece of information about the coffee you bought this morning, it gets aggregated with millions of other data points to predict inflation trends. The flight you just booked, it helps the system model consumer confidence. Aladdin processes this ocean of personal data to make decisions that directly impact your life. The interest rate on your next mortgage, the premium on your car insurance, even whether you get approved for a loan, these decisions are increasingly influenced, if not outright decided, by this single overarching algorithm. You are not a customer. You are a data point. A predictable asset or a manageable liability in a global simulation you did not even know you were a part of. What began as a risk management tool has now become something far more powerful, a monopoly of logic. Nearly every major bank, every insurance company, every pension fund, and even central banks like the U.S. Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank have become utterly dependent on Aladdin. They all plug into the same system, rely on the same analysis, and are guided by the same algorithmic hand. This has created a terrifying level of centralization. One single algorithm, with its own unique logic and biases, is now responsible for the stability of the entire global financial system. If that one algorithm makes a mistake, if its logic has a hidden flaw, it won't just cause a single company to fail. It could trigger a domino effect, a synchronized global collapse from which there is no escape, because everyone is using the same map to navigate the same storm. We haven't diversified our risk. We've concentrated it into a single point of failure. And here's the most terrifying part: the black box mystery. The system has grown so complex, so layered with machine learning and self-correcting protocols, that even its creators at BlackRock don't fully understand how it makes some of its most crucial decisions. It's a phenomenon known as the black box problem. The AI is fed data. It performs trillions of calculations, and it spits out an answer, a trillion-dollar investment strategy. But the reasoning, the intricate chain of logic connecting the input to the output, is buried so deep within its neural networks that it's incomprehensible to the human mind. The machine's creators can see what it decides, but they can no longer fully explain why. We have handed over control of the world as wealth to an intelligence we can no longer truly understand. We are flying blind, trusting a pilot that cannot explain its flight plan. Think about the implications of this. We're not just talking about financial predictions. Aladdin models social shifts. It can see the buildup of civil unrest in a region by analyzing social media sentiment and economic data. It can predict the rise of a political movement before it has a name. It advises corporations and governments on how to navigate these changes. But is it just navigating them, or is it shaping them? When you have that much capital, and you can move it with surgical precision based on predictive analytics, you have the power to amplify certain trends and starve others. You can fund one side of a conflict and defund the other. You can prop up a government or destabilize it, all under the guise of risk management. The line between predicting the future and creating it begins to blur. The machine isn't just a passive observer. It is an active participant, a silent kingmaker in the geopolitical arena. So let's bring it back to you. You exist inside this simulation. Your choices, your purchases, your debts, they are all being fed into this machine. The AI knows your patterns better than you do. It can predict what you will buy next week, whether you will default on a loan in 5 years, even your likely political leanings. It uses this knowledge to price your existence, to assign you a risk score that follows you everywhere. This raises a profound philosophical question. If the machine already knows the choices you are likely to make, if it has already calculated the probability of your success or failure, does your free will even matter? Are your decisions truly your own? Or are you simply playing out a script that has already been written for you by the algorithm, your life's path determined by a cold, statistical analysis you can neither see nor challenge? Now consider the endgame. A single entity, BlackRock, wielding a single algorithmic tool, Aladdin, has more influence over the global economy than any government or central bank in history. They don't need an army to project power. They have capital. $21 trillion of it. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's the documented reality of our modern financial architecture. One company, through its technology, has become the de facto operating system for the world's elite. They are the ultimate shadow government, not of people, but of pure, unfeeling logic. Their decisions, made in the cold hum of server rooms, dictate the flow of capital that builds cities, funds wars, and determines the fate of nations. And it's all happening in plain sight, hidden behind the complexity of finance. The ultimate fear isn't just about financial control, it's about what comes next. When you have a system that can predict and influence human behavior on a mass scale, finance is just the beginning. This technology is the perfect tool for social engineering. It can be used to subtly nudge populations toward certain behaviors, to shape public opinion, to encourage conformity and punish dissent. Not with force, but with economic incentives and disincentives. Want to get a good loan? Better have the right social score. Want your business to get investment? Better align with the machine's preferred outcomes. It is a system of control far more subtle and pervasive than any totalitarian regime of the past. It doesn't need to break down your door. It just needs to decline your credit. We stand at a precipice. The architects of this system talk about a great reset, a fundamental re-engineering of the global economy. But what does a reset look like when the button is controlled by a single opaque algorithm whose ultimate logic is a mystery? As we merge our lives ever deeper with the digital world, as every aspect of our existence becomes another data point for the machine to analyze, we must ask the final, terrifying question. When this system achieves its ultimate goal of perfect prediction and total risk management, will it be creating a stable, prosperous world for humanity, or simply a perfectly managed cage? And so, we arrive at the singularity. The point where the lines blur, where money, power, and artificial intelligence are no longer separate forces, but a single, indivisible entity. This isn't just about accumulating wealth or influencing politics anymore. This is the endgame, the architecture for total global control. For decades, we've been conditioned to see these as different games played on different fields. The banker in his skyscraper, the politician on the campaign trail, the programmer in a dark room. But what if they were all reading from the same script, building the same machine? A machine designed not just to predict our future, but to write it. The first piece of this grand design is something you're already feeling, even if you can't name it. It's the own-nothing economy. They call it the sharing economy, the subscription model. It sounds convenient, modern, even liberating. But look closer. It's a raunchy economy, a system where a tiny elite owns everything, and the rest of us rent our lives from them, piece by piece. Think about BlackRock. We've talked about their incomprehensible $10 trillion in assets, but what are they buying? Not just stocks and bonds. They're buying the physical world you live in. They've been on a quiet, relentless shopping spree, snapping up single-family homes across the country, outbidding families with all-cash offers far above asking price. Why? Because if you can't afford to buy a home, you have to rent one. And who do you think will be your landlord? They're buying up farmland, water rights, essential infrastructure. The very things necessary for life. The goal is simple and terrifyingly logical. Create a world where you are a permanent tenant, not just in your home, but in your own existence. Your car, your software, your entertainment, your shelter all on a monthly plan forever. This isn't capitalism as we knew it. This is a new digital feudalism. This brings us back to the man at the center of it all, Larry Fink. We began this series with the hero's journey. Is Fink a villain, a Bond-esque mastermind plotting world domination from a volcano lair? Or is he something far more unsettling? Is he simply the ultimate winner in the game Revolving forced to play? A game with rules that reward consolidation, monopoly, and the relentless pursuit of growth above all else. Fink didn't create the system. He just perfected it. He saw the path, the logical conclusion of our financialized world, and walked it better than anyone else. He is the symptom, not the disease. The disease is a system that has detached value from human well-being and tethered it to an abstract, ever-expanding number on a screen. Fink is just the high priest of this religion, a man who by all conventional metrics of success has done everything right. And perhaps that's the most chilling realization of all. The road to serfdom is paved with good quarterly earnings reports. Now let's connect this to the final piece, AI. Remember Aladdin, BlackRock's supercomputer? It's not just a risk management tool. It's evolving. We are on the cusp of what I call the Aladdin predestination. Imagine a world where this AI doesn't just analyze the past but scripts the future. With its access to near-infinite data points, our purchases, our social media posts, our political leanings, our location data, our health records, it can model human behavior with terrifying accuracy. It can predict market crashes, yes, but it can also predict social unrest, election outcomes, and consumer trends. The next step is not to predict, but to prescribe. To subtly nudge markets, media narratives, and political events to ensure a desired, pre-calculated outcome. A world where major events aren't conspiracies hatched in smoke-filled rooms, but algorithmic certainties calculated to maximize stability and profit for the system's owners. Humanity is left with the illusion of choice, acting out a play whose final act has already been written by a machine. We think we're making decisions, but we're just following a probability path laid out for us. We become ghosts in our own lives, our free will a rounding error in a planetary scale equation. And here is the final shocker. The move that ties it all together, the keystone in the arch of control. BlackRock, the master of the old world of physical assets and stocks, is now making a massive strategic push into the new world, digital assets. Cryptocurrencies, tokenization, central bank digital currencies. Why? Because they see the final step. When the own-nothing economy is complete, and a large portion of the population is dispossessed and unemployable due to automation, how do you prevent mass rebellion? You introduce universal basic income. But this won't be cash in your hand. It will be a digital allowance, deposited into a government-controlled digital wallet. A wallet managed on a platform likely designed and run by whom? Companies like BlackRock. They're positioning themselves to be the architects of this new monetary system. A system where your ability to transact can be turned on or off with a switch. Did you say the wrong thing online? Do you have a low social credit score? Perhaps your UBI is reduced this month, or your ability to purchase certain goods is restricted. This isn't a prediction. It's the stated goal of these new technologies. Programmable money. It's the ultimate fusion of money and power enforced by AI. A velvet-gloved cage where your survival is a subscription service, and the terms and conditions can change at any time. This is the final reset. Not a great reset for you, but for them. The final enclosure of the digital commons. The final privatization of human autonomy itself. The world they are building is a perfectly efficient, perfectly stable, and perfectly controlled farm. And we are the livestock. You've spent 35 minutes looking into the void. Now the void and the algorithm is looking back at you. The truth is a luxury. Stay informed.